I'm Janice Fiamengo of the University of Ottawa. My theme today is Feminist Rule on the University of Toronto campus, which was clearly demonstrated this past week when the Canadian Association for Equality, CAFE for short, was forced to move a scheduled talk by American journalist Cathy Young off campus. Cathy Young, an equity feminist, is critical of the totalitarian element in feminism, its inability to tolerate different points of view, to put it mildly, and its support for policies that discriminate against men. As such, Young is not popular amongst those who claim to speak for women. Now, in recent years, the feminist community at the University of Toronto has had a number of PR missteps, as groups of frenzied, obscenity-screaming students have been caught on film disrupting cafe events and intimidating and harassing those attending. We had the Warren Farrell talk, the Janice Fiamengo talk, the Paul Nathanson and Catherine Young talk. Excepting myself, these scholars are experts in the study of gender, extensively published and accredited, yet treated as if they were leaders of the Hitler revival movement. The feminists must have realized that despite the enormous and, in my opinion, undeserved public sympathy their cause inspires, they were beginning to look like the narcissistic bullies and bigots that they are. Then, an anonymous online threat was made against feminists at the University of Toronto on a public blog. Now, whatever discomfort the threat may have engendered, and I can understand that it would cause some anxiety and fear, many campus activists must also have recognized a golden opportunity, the chance to shut down the Cathy Young talk, all the while enjoying the righteous glow of their faux victimhood. So they went into action right away, organizing a mass rally of students, professors, local politicians, and union members in order to declare that the University of Toronto is a feminist campus where the supposedly rampant misogyny of some backwards types, those who care about men's human rights, must be stamped out once and for all.
Make no mistake, we need to regard this group as a very serious threat on our campus. We just want everyone to know that we'll be here every fucking time they do an event! We're gonna do our own events to point out what's wrong with this group, why they're a threat, why they shouldn't be allowed on this campus. So thank you everyone who came out, and we'll be doing more of this shit, because we're not gonna be gone.
Thank you everyone for coming out. This is just the first demo. There will be more.
It was a win for the feminists, with the upshot being that male and female students who are interested in hearing Cathy Young speak on campus, which is precisely where talks like Young's should be held, will have to go off campus to hear her. Now, how exactly that diminishes the fear and tension supposedly generated by Young's views isn't clear to me, but it takes the problem out of the lap of the pusillanimous University of Toronto administration, and it showcases the might of the feminasties. But before I say a bit more about the shameful failure of the university administration to protect what used to be the bedrock of university life, freedom of inquiry, freedom of expression, let me take a step back to consider the reaction by the University of Toronto campus community to another attack, this time a real one, on a university professor. Just a year ago, in September of 2014, a professor of mathematics named Sean Upall was attacked with a knife by one of his students, receiving injuries to wrists, thighs, and face, requiring hospitalization. Now, I didn't hear about this attack at the time, and I'm guessing you may not have either, because the coverage was very low-key and the university response was muted. There were no public statements, no mass outrage, and no rallies. In fact, reading the news reports, one has to be alert to figure out that the person who attacked the professor was female, a student named Xiaoyu Zhu from China. The headline in the CBC News report mentions only that a gender-neutral math student attacked a gender-neutral professor with a knife. As we've noted before, when men rather than women are the victims of violence, their gender isn't news. Only female victims are news. And the only time femaleness is not news is when the woman is the perpetrator of the violence, as in this case. Never once in the article about the attack do the words female or woman appear at all. Only the pesky pronouns give away the game when we're told that the accused is a 21-year-old international student who is believed to be in her second year. It seems that this student had developed an obsession with her professor after some kind of misunderstanding, and she began sending him anonymous emails that were troubling enough to cause him to alert the university administration and campus police in the days before she attacked him. The precise motive for the assault was never revealed. Not surprisingly, this attack prompted no campus demonstrations by social justice activists, no discussion of female violence, no calls for anti-violence training for women students, no calls for increased protection for male students and teachers. In reports on the crime, the event is portrayed as isolated and inexplicable. The main focus of most of the reporting is the role that stress likely played in the students' behavior. Reporters even saw fit to comment on U-Paul's behavior as a teacher, whether he gave tough exams, whether he was approachable or not. The implication being that there had to have been something in U-Paul's own actions that caused the, quote, allegedly unprovoked attack. So widespread is the societal assumption that women do not attack men without reason. Not a single commentator made any link between the attack and a climate of anti-male hostility on campus, represented in conferences such as the Feminist Porn Conference in April of 2014, for example, featuring keynote speaker Lisa Dugan, who has made a career lamenting the, quote, distinctly white male heterosexual form of American citizenship. Not a single commentator made any link between the attack and the anti-male attitudes that are now a regular part of many undergraduate programs at the University of Toronto. The reflexive belief that women are good and innocent while men are responsible for all the evil of the world. Now, I'm not saying they should have made such a link. I'm just pointing out that they didn't for comparative purposes. The seemingly immortal belief in female goodness may have played some role in the outpouring of online support for the knife-wielding student, who continues to this day, after spending 2 months in a mental facility and 10 months in a correctional institute, to manifest an obsession with her former professor and a disturbing lack of remorse for what she did. How different the Saul Alinsky-style capitalization on the anonymous threat against feminists this past week, in which all the stops have been pulled out, and of course a link drawn directly by feminist speakers at the rally to, quote, men's rights misogynists on our campus. Indeed, feminists lost no time in attributing the online threat to the, quote, vile and vicious misogyny of MRAs. Of course, we don't actually know who made the threat, whether it was a male student disgruntled with the nonsense that passes for knowledge being taught in the disciplines of sociology and women's studies, a genuine killer, or a feminist attempting to whip up a frenzy of victim claims. Let's not pretend that feminists don't post threats against feminists online to serve their cause. We know they do. General threats like these are distressingly common in a time of social media anonymity. Remember the Kill All Men hashtag so popular in the last year, which saw countless women tweeting out their conviction that reducing men to 1 in 4 of the population would solve most of society's problems, and defenders of such statements claiming that women were merely voicing their justified anger. about kill all men's happy contemplation of violence against men, nobody in any position of power took the threats seriously. As Salon magazine sagely opined, nobody really thinks a hashtag is a serious call to genocide. Unless, of course, the hashtag targets women rather than men. In the case of the Post calling on students to shoot up feminist professors, the police stated that they failed to find a credible threat. But nonetheless, security on the University of Toronto campus was stepped up, as it should have been. And in a sane world, that's all that could have been expected. A free society can never be an entirely secure society, and it is ludicrous to pretend otherwise, as in the manner of the CUPE Union Women's Caucus member who posted on Facebook, "What if we all refused work until the world is safe for women?" Well, what if we all refused work until the world is safe for men? Either way, nobody would be working anytime soon. Though if it comes to numbers, men are far more often the victims of violence than women. Regardless, as we have seen, feminists went into an orgy of outrage and defiance over violence against women, conveniently forgetting, if they had ever known, the actual violence Professor Sean Upall experienced this time last year. And the University of Toronto administration didn't have the integrity to make clear a commitment to securing the campus for all so that Cathy Young's talk could go ahead in an atmosphere befitting a university. That's what should have happened. A call for sanity, a secure room provided where people would be invited to listen to Cathy Young and discuss her ideas, with the histrionics left for political rallies or the nursery room. Yes, it seems the University of Toronto is indeed a feminist campus, and we're all the poorer for it.